The night Anthony Evans packed his suitcase and walked out of his marble-floored mansion, he never looked back. He did not see the tears streaming down Eleanor's cheeks as she stood in the doorway, pleading for him to stay. He ignored the echo of his own footsteps across the cold tiles when he slammed the front door behind him. His heart had turned silent against her cries. And when he climbed into his sleek black car, gazing at the wedding photo that still rested on the hallway table, he felt no guilt. He believed the new life waiting for him would shine brighter than any vow he had once made. The most unsettling thing was how certain he was in that moment, certain that he had no regrets. At the time, Anthony was a self-assured billionaire, the CEO of a giant tech company. He was known for his sharp suits, quick deals, and a carefully constructed smile that masked any weakness. Everyone admired him. He was always the man in perfect control. Yet on that fateful night, he did the one thing he had never planned to do. He chose his young mistress, Isabel, over his loyal wife, Eleanor. No one saw it coming, especially Eleanor. She had grown used to the rumors that sprang up in glossy magazines and gossip columns. She heard whispers about her husband's late-night meetings with a new, pretty face who wore bright red lipstick and always stood too close to him in photographs. Each rumor felt like a small cut in Eleanor's heart, but she never believed Anthony would leave her. Then the whispers proved true, and he left. He left his home, his wife, and their hopes of having a child. He left behind the life they had built since they were young. He walked away without looking back, without caring that she was pregnant. She had not told him yet because it was so new and so precious. She feared that he might not want the baby. She had hoped to share the news in a romantic moment that would make him smile. But that moment never came. Instead, he threw his suitcase in the trunk, turned the key, and disappeared down the long, winding driveway into the night. Eleanor was left alone. She sank to the floor, knees pressed against the cool tiles. She stared at the empty doorway. Her hand drifted over her abdomen, where the life inside her was still too small for anyone to notice. In that instant, she felt true heartbreak. She did not scream or cry out loud. Instead, she swallowed her pain and tried to stand. She could not. The world felt heavier than it ever had before. In the months after Anthony left, Eleanor faced one hardship after another. Money stopped flowing into her account. Anthony halted her credit cards. He stopped the monthly allowance he had promised her. He instructed his lawyers to handle the divorce without any extra support. Perhaps, in his mind, it was best to sever ties fast. Or perhaps he was being guided by lawyers who saw a chance to protect his massive fortune from a messy divorce. Either way, Eleanor found herself alone and pregnant, with no help from the man she once loved. At first, she tried to contact him. She left messages, begging him to speak to her. She asked his secretary for a chance to visit him at the company's headquarters. She even tried to show up at his private events. But she was turned away at every corner. Anthony refused to see her. At best, she spoke to his lawyers, who looked at her with cold eyes and told her to sign the divorce papers quietly. That was what he wanted, they said. She would get a small settlement if she signed. She knew it would not be enough to raise a child by herself, especially not in the way she wanted. She held her ground, determined to keep the baby, determined to figure out some way to provide love and support. Weeks turned into months. She retreated from the public eye. She sold many of her designer dresses and jewelry to pay for her small apartment near the outskirts of the city. She lived quietly, focusing on her health and the future of her child. Then, something unexpected happened. Her single baby turned out to be 3. Eleanor discovered she was carrying triplets. The doctor showed her the ultrasound, and her eyes widened. She counted 1, 2, 3 little heartbeats. It was a miracle, but it also frightened her. Raising one child on her own was already a challenge, and now there would be 3. She felt anxious, but also brave. She knew she had to protect these 3 precious lives. Anthony still did not respond to her messages. She wrote him letters, leaving details about her upcoming due date, hoping he would show some concern. But she heard nothing. It felt like she was talking to a wall. One warm afternoon, Eleanor's water broke. She rushed to the hospital by herself, breathing through waves of pain and fear. Nurses hurried around her. Doctors checked her condition. The labor was not easy, but she fought for her babies. After many hours, 3 healthy boys were born. They all had Anthony's dark hair. Even in their newborn state, they reminded her of him. She held them, tears running down her cheeks, and whispered their names: Caleb, Adam, and Drew. Raising 3 children alone was no small feat. Eleanor woke up in the middle of the night to feed them, changed countless diapers, and juggled part-time work to pay for their needs. She found a job as an assistant at a small marketing firm. She was not making a big salary, but it was enough to pay rent and keep food on the table. On many nights, she stayed up sewing clothes for the boys. She learned how to budget every penny, how to sacrifice her own comforts to make sure they had everything they needed. She did not have any nanny or extra help. All she had was love and determination. She never told the boys who their father was. At first, they were too young to ask, and she was too hurt to talk about him. But as they grew older, they began to notice they had no father in their life. They saw other kids who had dads attending school events. They watched from afar and asked, "Mom, do we have a father?" She would smile sadly and say, "He is far away, and he does not know about you. But I love you enough for both of us." It was not an easy explanation, but it was the best she could offer without shattering their hearts. She still hoped, deep inside, that one day Anthony would come back, or at least want to meet his children. Yet as time passed, she grew more certain that he never would. Meanwhile, Anthony's life marched forward. He moved into a stunning penthouse with Isabel, his young mistress. The city sparkled below them at night, and they hosted glamorous parties. He showered Isabel with gifts, and she returned the favor with her charm and beauty. On the surface, it seemed perfect, but not all was well in Anthony's heart. He sometimes dreamt of Eleanor's face, especially the night he left. Her tearful eyes haunted him in quiet moments. He dismissed these dreams as mere remnants of a past life. He threw himself into his work, expanding his business empire. Soon he was on the cover of business magazines, hailed as a visionary. But even with all the recognition, a strange emptiness crept into his days. He never admitted it to anyone, not even to himself, because he feared facing what he had done. It was easier to pretend that he was fulfilled. Isabel did not share any interest in children or family life. She preferred parties, high fashion, and traveling to exotic locations. Whenever Anthony hinted at wanting something more meaningful, like a family, she would laugh and say, "We are too busy living. Babies can wait." Anthony would nod, pushing aside any regrets. Yet a small part of him, tucked away in a silent corner of his mind, missed the warmth of a simple home. Years went by. Isabel's charm began to fade for Anthony. Their conversations grew shallow. They had disagreements about money and attention. She wanted more of his time, and he wanted more peace. Still, he could not bring himself to leave, because he had already walked out on one woman. He did not want to face more shame or more guilt. So he stayed in that hollow life, half aware that he had made a terrible mistake by abandoning Eleanor. Caleb, Adam, and Drew grew into lively, talented boys. Even though Eleanor struggled financially, she nurtured their gifts. She noticed they all shared a passion for music and dance. From a young age, they would sing along to songs on the radio, matching each other's pitch, never missing a beat. They turned pots and pans into makeshift drums and stamped their feet in rhythm on the living room floor. Their voices blended in harmony, and their laughter filled the small apartment with life. Eleanor saved every spare dollar to enroll them in dance and music classes. The boys performed at school shows, stunning the audience with their energy and talent. People said they were naturals. By the time they turned 10, they were winning small competitions at local events, and many believed they had a bright future in the performing arts. Despite their talents, the triplets never forgot their mother's struggle. They saw how hard she worked. They sometimes caught her crying quietly in the middle of the night, pressing her forehead against the kitchen counter after finishing a shift at work. They knew she hid her tears to protect them, so they always gave their best at every performance, hoping one day they could earn enough to ease her burden. They did not know the truth about their father, except that he was not around. Maybe he did not want them, or maybe he was just gone forever. None of them realized he was a famous billionaire they saw sometimes on the news. When the triplets turned 12, an opportunity came that would change everything. Their school announced a big talent show that would be recorded and shared online for a national audience. The best acts might even receive a chance to audition for a larger national TV program. The boys were thrilled. They spent weeks rehearsing a medley of songs and dance routines. They wore matching outfits that Eleanor carefully stitched from discounted fabric. On the night of the show, they stepped onto the stage with bright smiles, full of hope. It was the biggest moment of their young lives. What they did not know was that Anthony Evans's business contacts included a major sponsor of the event. Anthony rarely attended such shows, but that night he had accepted an invitation from a business partner who insisted he make an appearance for publicity. So, by pure chance, Anthony sat in the VIP section, far from the stage. He was bored for most of the evening, glancing at his phone and waiting for it to be over. Then, the triplets walked on, took their positions, and the spotlight shone on them. From the moment they began their performance, Anthony's eyes snapped to them. Something about their faces struck him with an alarming sense of recognition. He felt like he was looking into a trio of mirrors, each reflecting a part of himself as a child. They had his dark hair, his sharp jawline, and the shape of his eyes. He could not believe what he was seeing. He leaned forward in his seat, heart thumping. The boys sang beautifully, their voices weaving together, and then they began to dance in perfect unison. The crowd cheered, but Anthony barely heard it. His mind was spinning. He thought he was seeing ghosts of his childhood. He rubbed his eyes, convinced he must be imagining it. When the performance ended, the boys bowed to thunderous applause. Cameras flashed, and their names were announced: Caleb, Adam, and Drew Johnson. The crowd erupted. Anthony felt a chill down his spine. He remembered that Eleanor's maiden name was Johnson. Could these children be? The idea was so impossible, yet it made sense. He did some quick mental math. 12 years. He had left Eleanor a little over 12 years ago. He realized with a shock that these triplets might be his sons. As soon as the show ended, Anthony scrambled to leave his seat. He had to find them backstage. But by the time he reached the hallway behind the stage, the area was crowded with performers and parents congratulating their kids. He looked around, frantic, scanning each face for the triplets. He tried to ask the staff, but nobody knew exactly where they had gone. He finally caught sight of them disappearing around a corner. He sprinted in that direction. His expensive shoes clicked on the floor. But just as he turned the corner, he saw the exit door shutting behind them. He rushed out into the dark parking lot. A few cars were leaving, headlights shining in the night. He saw a small, old sedan pulling away. Through the rear window, he glimpsed 3 identical heads, excitement still glowing on their faces. The car took a right turn onto the main road and was gone. Anthony stood there, breathing heavily, with no idea how to reach them. His mind was in turmoil. If these boys were truly his, that meant Eleanor had been pregnant when he left her. It meant he had left not just his wife, but 3 unborn children. He felt sick to his stomach, realizing how deep his mistake might have gone. All the old guilt he had ignored came crashing back. He needed to find them. He needed to be sure. Anthony spent hours that night searching social media and news about the talent show. He scrolled through countless photos and videos. Then he found it, a short clip of the triplets posted by a local news page. People were praising the boys, calling them the bright stars of the show. In the comments, he found the name of the school they attended, along with a link to their music club's page. He quickly wrote an email to the principal, pretending to be a sponsor who wanted to offer the triplets a scholarship. He begged for a meeting. He tapped the send button, heart pounding. The next day, the principal replied, delighted by Anthony's interest. A meeting was set for the following Monday morning at the school. Anthony arrived early, nerves jangling. He was not sure how he would explain himself. Should he reveal that he was their father? Would the triplets even believe him? He worried that Eleanor might never forgive him. He was shown into the principal's office. Moments later, the door opened, and Eleanor walked in with the triplets. She looked older, more tired, but still lovely in a natural, graceful way. The instant they saw each other, the air seemed to crackle with tension. Eleanor froze. She stared at Anthony with wide eyes. The boys exchanged confused glances, sensing something strange. Anthony stood, cleared his throat, and spoke softly. "Eleanor, it's been a long time." He looked at the triplets. Their faces were filled with curiosity. They had no idea who this stranger was or why their mother had gone so pale. The principal introduced Anthony as a wealthy sponsor who wanted to support the boys' talent. Eleanor managed a polite smile for the principal's sake, but she did not fool her sons. They could tell she was shaken. When the principal stepped out to check on something, Anthony, Eleanor, and the boys were left alone. Eleanor found her voice. "What are you doing here?" she asked, barely louder than a whisper. Anthony's eyes flickered toward the boys. "I saw them at the talent show," he said. His voice trembled. "They look exactly like me." Caleb, Adam, and Drew's mouths dropped open in unison. They stared at Anthony, then at their mother, trying to piece together what he meant. Eleanor realized there was no running from the truth anymore. She took a shaky breath, looking down. "Yes," she admitted, her voice thick with emotion. "They're yours." The boys stood there in shock, their faces etched with surprise and maybe a hint of anger. Anthony felt tears prick the corners of his eyes, but he tried to stay calm. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked Eleanor. She let out a weak laugh. "I tried. You cut me off. You refused to see me. You left me when I needed you most." Anthony hung his head, shame crushing him. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I never knew. If I had known." Eleanor's voice shook. "Would it have made a difference? You chose your mistress over our marriage. You shut me out. You never looked back." The boys listened, hearts pounding. They realized their father was the billionaire they had seen on TV, the one who left their mother all those years ago. None of them knew how to feel. They had grown up without a father, and now this man stood before them, looking both sad and desperate. The principal returned then, and they all put on forced smiles and pretended to discuss scholarships. But the tension was impossible to ignore. The principal sensed something was off, but she did not pry. After the meeting, Eleanor fled with the boys, hurrying down the hallway. Anthony tried to follow, calling her name, but she walked faster. The boys trailed behind, still shocked. They had never seen their mother so upset. They slipped into their old sedan and drove away. Anthony refused to walk away this time. He reached out again and again, sending messages, leaving voicemails, begging for a chance to talk. He showed up at the school gates, waiting. Eventually, Eleanor allowed him a brief meeting in a small coffee shop near her neighborhood. She came alone, leaving the boys at home. She sat across from him, arms crossed, eyes guarded. "I don't want your money," she said, voice firm. "We've come this far without you. We don't need you swooping in now." Anthony nodded, his gaze downcast. "I understand. But they deserve to know me. They deserve the chance to hear my apology, see if we can have some kind of relationship. I know I made mistakes. I'm not asking you to forgive me right away, but please, let me meet them. Let me try." Eleanor closed her eyes. Old anger and sadness welled up inside her. She had cried so many nights, feeling abandoned. She had made countless sacrifices. And now, here he was, ready to fix everything with a few meetings? It felt both unfair and tempting. She knew the boys were curious, though they also felt hurt. "Fine," she said. "We will have dinner this Saturday at my apartment. You can come, but don't expect them to welcome you with open arms. They've spent 12 years without a father. You'll need to earn their trust." Eleanor closed her eyes. Old anger and sadness welled up inside her. She had cried so many nights, feeling abandoned. She had made countless sacrifices. And now, here he was, ready to fix everything with a few meetings? It felt both unfair and tempting. She knew the boys were curious, though they also felt hurt. "Fine," she said. "We will have dinner this Saturday at my apartment. You can come, but don't expect them to welcome you with open arms. They've spent 12 years without a father. You'll need to earn their trust." Anthony nodded, tears filling his eyes. "Thank you," he said quietly. Saturday night came. Anthony arrived, holding a small bouquet of flowers and a box of pastries. Eleanor opened the door. The boys stood behind her, arms folded. They looked at him with guarded expressions, uncertain how to behave around this man who claimed to be their father. Anthony tried to break the ice. He handed the flowers to Eleanor and the pastries to the boys. "I didn't know what you liked," he said. "I guessed." They mumbled thanks and set the pastries on the table. Dinner was awkward. They ate spaghetti in silence. The boys threw nervous glances at their mother. Anthony tried to ask questions about their interests, school, music, and dance. They answered politely but briefly. Eleanor did not say much. She watched, trying to gauge if Anthony was sincere. As the meal ended, Anthony cleared his throat. "I owe all of you a big apology," he said. "I made a terrible choice years ago. I was selfish and blind, and I hurt your mother deeply. I hurt you three by not being there for you from the start." His voice shook. "I can't change the past, but I want to be here now. I want to support your dreams, be a part of your life, if you'll let me." His eyes searched theirs for any sign of acceptance. The boys glanced at one another. They had practiced music without a dad. They had faced bullies and questions, faced financial struggles, and watched their mother break down in tears. Now, this man wanted to step in and help. They did not know how to feel. Anger and curiosity battled in their hearts. Caleb finally spoke. "We're not sure how to treat you," he said. "We've never had a dad." Adam added, "Mom told us you were far away and didn't know about us. But it's so strange seeing you here now." Drew said nothing, just looked down at his plate, tears glistening in his eyes. Anthony nodded, trying to remain calm even though his heart ached. "I understand," he whispered. "I know trust has to be earned." After dinner, Anthony left, promising to come again if they wanted him to. Eleanor watched him go, her mind swirling with old emotions. The boys sat in the living room, silent for a long while. Finally, Caleb said, "Mom, maybe we should hear him out." He looked sorry. Eleanor sighed, tears gathering in her eyes. "He does. I don't know what to do either." In the weeks that followed, Anthony continued to show up. He attended every local performance the triplets had. He clapped louder than anyone else in the audience. He offered to drive them home so Eleanor would not have to do so many trips. He surprised them with new musical instruments for practice. At first, Eleanor resisted, but the old instruments were battered, and the new ones helped the boys improve their music. Caleb, Adam, and Drew found themselves smiling around Anthony, little by little. They shared jokes, told him stories about their day. They discovered he could be funny when he tried. There was still distance between them, but it was shrinking. Meanwhile, Anthony parted ways with Isabel. Their relationship had been hollow for a long time, and once he accepted that he wanted to be a father and mend things with Eleanor, he saw no future with his mistress. She left without a fight, deciding it was best to move on to a different wealthy suitor who met her lifestyle needs. Anthony felt relieved, more certain than ever that he had made the right decision. He took small steps to win back Eleanor's trust. He admitted his past mistakes. He even helped her find a better job, though she refused to rely on him for money. She wanted to stand on her own feet, just with a bit of guidance. He respected that. Some nights, he would come over to help the boys with their homework or bring groceries. They would talk, laugh, and sometimes cry. Eleanor saw the changes in him. He was more humble now. He did not hide behind arrogance. He no longer boasted about his wealth. She could see real regret in his eyes. But forgiveness did not come easily. One day, the boys asked Anthony about the night he left their mother. He explained that he had been caught in pride and greed, that he had chased a life he thought was more exciting. He looked at them with tears in his eyes. "I was wrong," he said. "I wish I could go back in time and change what I did. But I can't. All I can do is be here for you now." The boys listened quietly. They felt the weight of his regret. It made them sad to think their mother had suffered while their father pursued a false dream. Yet they could see he was trying to make amends. Months passed, and the triplets worked hard on their music and dance. They qualified for a bigger nationwide talent contest. This time, Anthony was not just a distant figure in the crowd. He was front row, cheering with all his heart. Eleanor sat beside him, still unsure if they could fully repair their relationship, but accepting that Anthony was sincere in his desire to be a good father. The triplets performed with all the energy and joy they possessed. Their voices rang out across the huge stage. Cameras captured their every move, and the audience rose to their feet, clapping wildly. The air was electric. When the final note faded, the cheers were deafening. Caleb, Adam, and Drew grinned, sweat beading on their foreheads. They looked out into the crowd and saw Anthony waving. They saw Eleanor wiping tears from her eyes. In that moment, they felt like a true family. As the winners were announced, the triplets' name boomed through the speakers. They had won first place. Confetti rained down from above. The three boys jumped around in excitement, hugging each other. Anthony and Eleanor rushed onto the stage with them. The host handed them a trophy, praising their incredible talent. Cameras snapped photographs of the joyous group. Then, in a burst of courage, Anthony took the microphone. He looked at the triplets, his voice trembling. "I want to dedicate this moment to my sons, who have taught me about forgiveness, love, and second chances. And to Eleanor, who stood by them no matter what. I was not there when I should have been, but I promise I will spend the rest of my life making it right." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears as the crowd applauded. The triplets joined in a group hug with both parents. For the first time since that awful night, Anthony felt a sense of hope and wholeness. The stage lights glowed and the applause roared, but nothing mattered more than the fact that the people he had wronged were giving him a chance to be there for them at last. Over time, Anthony and Eleanor slowly rebuilt their bond. It was not a fairy tale. They had many long talks about the past, many wounds to mend, and many steps to take before trust was fully restored. Yet they found new warmth in each other's presence. Eleanor saw a changed man who truly regretted his past choices. Anthony recognized how strong Eleanor had been and how much she had sacrificed. He helped her set up a small business, something she had always dreamed of doing but never had the resources to start. The triplets thrived, working on new performances and traveling for shows. With their father's support, they found better opportunities. Yet they never forgot the sacrifices their mother made, nor the lessons they learned about humility and forgiveness. Their hearts were big, and they welcomed Anthony into their lives with open arms, even though they would sometimes tease him about his old mistakes to keep him humble. Eleanor and Anthony became partners again, not just in parenting, but also in life. It was not quick or simple. They took it one day at a time, learning to communicate, to be honest, and to set aside pride. When the time felt right, Anthony proposed to her again, in a simple and heartfelt gesture in their living room. He had no giant diamond ring this time, just a small band that symbolized a fresh start. With tears in her eyes, Eleanor said yes. The triplets clapped and jumped around, excited to see their family finally complete. Their second wedding ceremony was small and quiet, with close friends and family. There were no limousines, no flashy announcements in magazines. Just genuine joy. Eleanor walked down the aisle wearing a modest white dress. Anthony, in a plain suit, waited at the altar, eyes brimming with tears. The triplets stood close, each holding a small bouquet of flowers for their mother. It felt like a true new beginning, one forged by pain, regret, growth, and the power of love. At the reception, they sat together in a humble backyard, eating homemade food, laughing and telling stories. Neighbors came to congratulate them. The boys performed a short, fun routine for their parents. Anthony's eyes shone with pride, and Eleanor's face glowed with gratitude. The air was filled with the warmth of hope. From that day on, their home was filled with music and second chances. The rooms rang with laughter and occasional arguments. There were challenges and joys. Life was not perfect, but it was real and honest. Every morning, Anthony woke up with a new sense of purpose. He would take the boys to school, attend their shows, work on new projects, and come home to have dinner with his family. And every night, he whispered a thank you for having found a path to redemption. Eleanor no longer cried alone in the kitchen. She had a partner to lean on and sons who loved her dearly. She still remembered the pain of being abandoned. But she chose to believe in forgiveness and in the possibility that people can change if they truly want to. The triplets grew older, each developing his own special talent. Caleb became a strong lead vocalist. Adam focused on songwriting and composing music. Drew excelled in dance and choreography. They supported one another, forming a tight bond as brothers, never forgetting the moment their father finally recognized them on that stage. Their story became an inspiration in their community, not because it was perfect, but because it showed how even the deepest hurts can heal when people choose love and forgiveness. Anthony used his influence to support arts programs in schools, hoping to give more kids the chance to chase their dreams. He believed he was making up for lost time, though he knew some things could never be undone. Still, he pressed forward, guided by gratitude. One evening, long after the wedding, the family sat by a cozy fireplace in their new home. The triplets were practicing a new acoustic song they had written together. Anthony and Eleanor listened, hands entwined. Their eyes met, and they shared a quiet smile. Once upon a time, everything had seemed lost. But now, through hard lessons and open hearts, they had found something stronger than what they had before. This time, they had built it on truth, acceptance, and an unshakable promise to never abandon each other again.